Hi, everyone, and welcome. Today we're plunging into something truly profound, a deep dive into the rebrand without consent, a Black American journey to clarity, power, and strategy.
hmm
Our source material is this really remarkable presentation slide deck, and it's got everything, speaker notes, even some deeply personal reflections. Our mission today is to really unpack the journey laid out in these sources. We want to pull out the key insights about identity, strategic thinking, and economic power.
And this isn't just about like one specific narrative. It gives us a really crucial lens, I think. It helps you grasp not just the unique cultural dynamics here, but also, broader global movements and how these economic strategies unfold, often without everyone being fully aware or, frankly, giving consent.
Absolutely. It's about seeing that bigger picture. And to set the tone right away, let's start with this opening quote from the sources. It really frames everything. We are not confused or disconnected. We are focused on survival. Don't mistake clarity for passivity. Powerful stuff.
Really sets the stage, doesn't it?
It does. So this whole analysis, this journey described in the sources, it actually kicks off from a specific moment, Essence Fest 2024. The author notes this heavy African and diaspora presence there. And, on the surface, that sounds like unity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there was this feeling, this sort of undercurrent described,
Yeah.
that Black Americans were the draw,
Yeah.
the main attraction, but maybe not the priority. Like, they were the reason people came, but the strategic benefits weren't necessarily flowing back to them.
And that observation, that feeling, it sparks this really critical question in the author's mind, according to the sources. What do they know that we don't?
Yeah.
And the sources are quick to clarify this isn't about Black Americans being like disconnected from what's happening globally. It's actually quite the opposite. Their
Yeah.
focus is often just laser sharp on survival, on stabilizing things at home.
Right.
And this intense internal focus, the sources point out, it gets misread. People see it as disinterest.
When it's actually strategic.
Exactly. It's a strategic consolidation,
Yeah.
a focus on their own communities first.
That distinction feels so important. Misread focus versus actual disinterest. And that leads us right into what the sources call the realization. This is where things get, pretty stark. There's this striking statement. We are the culture, but we are not the ones cashing the checks.
Yeah, that hits hard. And this is where the sources detail this idea of a global rebrand of Blackness happening. But crucially, it's happening without the input, sometimes even without the knowledge of Black Americans.
How does that play out? What examples do the sources give?
Oh, they talk about diaspora groups leveraging Black American influence for tourism, for branding campaigns, even for policy goals. Black Americans become this sort of platform, is the word used, but they're not included as partners.
Just the platform.
Right. The source even uses the word bait, which is pretty jarring when you think about what that implies.
Wow. That really lands heavily. And the speaker notes expand on this, right? They say Black Americans have become the product, and the packaging is the things that Black Americans do and who we are and what we build. So the actual culture is the packaging.
Exactly. And the practical implication, as the sources really emphasize, is this profound lack of agency, lack of economic control. Your cultural output, your identity, it becomes a commodity, something others can market.
So like music styles or slang?
Yeah, think about it. A music style starts in the US, gets repackaged for, say, tourism somewhere else. Slang goes global. But the people who created it, they see none of the financial upside. It lets others profit from the essence without investing back into the community it came from.
That makes sense. It reminds me of this anecdote in the reflection notes, the jollof rice versus jambalaya thing.
Ah, yeah.
Seems like just a food debate, right? But the sources use it as a metaphor. It shows how even small cultural differences, if you frame them as competition, can create these divisions.
Right. Divisions that actually stop strategic collaboration between different Black communities. Instead of building unity, it hinders it.
Interesting how something seemingly small can illustrate a larger strategic point.
And that brings us to this crucial pivot in the sources. They call it the language of strategy. And they're very clear. This isn't about trying to create some kind of tribal unity. It's explicitly about economic strategy.
Okay, so shifting gears from unity to economics.
Precisely. And the sources drop this really powerful line: Pan-Africanism has been weaponized as branding.
Weaponized as branding. What does that mean in this context?
It means a historical movement, one intended to unite people of African descent globally, is being sort of co-opted, used purely as a marketing tool in this specific context described by the sources, stripped of its deeper political social aims.
So the idea of unity is used, but not the substance.
That seems to be the argument, which leads to this insight that global blackness itself has become a product. And Black Americans, as the sources bluntly put it, are the packaging.
That's quite a statement. The packaging for global blackness. And you mentioned the speaker notes stress this too, that the rebrand isn't about Black Americans, but through them.
Exactly. It uses their cultural capital. And the sources even mention, disturbingly, that Black Americans were included in some African plans for global positioning through what the sources call backdoor deals, without their knowledge, without their permission.
Wow. Okay, that lack of consent really seems to be the core thread here.
It absolutely is.
So, faced with all this, these stark realities, the sources then pivot. They introduce a potential solution, or at least a framework. Dr. Claude Anderson's Powernomics. For listeners who might not be familiar, could you briefly explain what Powernomics is about, based on the sources?
Sure. Based on how the sources present it, Powernomics isn't just theory. It's a strategic economic framework. It's designed to build and, importantly, consolidate wealth and power within the Black community. Big emphasis on self-sufficiency, collective action.
Okay, a framework for building internal strength.
Right. And Dr. Anderson laid out this potent concept called the cycle of wealth. It's fundamental. It goes natural resources, which leads to labor, then that enables technology, and finally that generates information. He argued this cycle is the engine of economic power.
Natural resources, labor, technology, information. Got it.
But here's the critical insight from our sources, the really sobering part. For Black Americans, they argue every single part of that cycle, it's still being systematically exploited or used against them, even now.
Every part. So potential assets become liabilities.
That's the argument laid out. Let's break that down based on the source material.
Okay, so first, land. The sources talk about gentrification, loss, communities being priced and zoned out.
Yeah, and it's not just losing a house, right? It's the erosion of community foundations. Displacement, losing those ancestral ties to places. It fundamentally undermines resource accumulation, building wealth across generations.
Okay, so land is compromised. Then labor. The sources say cultural labor music, slang, style is stolen, unpaid, exploited.
Exactly. It's like intellectual property, cultural property just being extracted, no compensation. Creative work becomes a free resource for others. It's a huge economic drain on the community that creates it.
Draining energy and capital. Makes sense. And technology. The sources mention AI trained on Black data.
This is the modern version, isn't it? Your digital footprint, your cultural expressions online are used to build these valuable AI systems. Systems that can reinforce biases or create profit streams for others without benefit or control going back to the community providing the data.
Right. The data is valuable, but not to the creators.
That's the concern raised.
And finally, information. The sources say the struggle itself gets rebranded for optics. Symbolism over sovereignty.
Yeah, the message gets diluted, turned into sound bites, maybe fashion statements. The actual core message of a movement can get lost in the noise, used for appearances rather than real change.
It's a lot to take in, seeing that cycle laid out like that. The source material actually poses a question here, doesn't it? It asks the reader.
Yes, it asks, what part of the wealth cycle feels most urgent to you in this moment? It's a powerful point for reflection.
Definitely something for listeners to consider.
So, facing this analysis of the cycle, the author of the source material makes a very specific decision. They decided not to just imitate Dr. Anderson, not to just jump on the bandwagon.
Okay.
Instead, the goal was to serve his legacy, to protect it. They actually reached out for permission, explicitly trying not to be just another voice trying to capitalize on his work.
That's interesting. A conscious choice about how to engage with his ideas?
Very much so. The strategy articulated is preservation plus permission, not performance.
Preservation and permission, not just performing or grabbing attention.
Exactly. It signals a focus on integrity, on building properly on the existing foundation.
And that leads into the section, the shift begins here.
Yeah.
The sources talk about creating specific things, right?
Yes. They detail what's being built, a curriculum inspired by Powernomics, a podcast focused on survival strategies, and a series dedicated to reflection and reclamation.
Okay, concrete initiatives.
And what's really stressed is that these are all rooted in the Black American experience.
Not diluted, not globalized.
Exactly. Focused squarely on lineage, on truth, as the sources put it. Not chasing trends or likes. It's about authentic grounding in their experience.
That feels like a really deliberate anchoring. So this whole deep dive, it seems to culminate in this powerful invitation from the sources. It says, you are not late. You are on assignment.
Yeah, it's a strong call. And this assignment, it's clarified. It's not about creating division. It's a call to clarity, to discernment, to really see what's going on.
So understanding, not dividing.
Right. The sources emphasize needing to be grounded, not necessarily global in focus at this stage, to build, to question things, to reflect. It's an active internal process.
Empowering yourself through that knowledge and clarity.
Precisely.
And it leaves us with that final, really impactful message from the sources. Rebrand without consent is theft. Clarity is our defense. Strategy is our survival.
Powerful closing thought.
And the sources conclude by saying, we're not confused, we're not lost, we're not divided, we are focused. And that is power.
A shift from perceived passivity to declared focus.
What a journey we've covered today. I mean, from recognizing that disconnect to understanding how culture gets leveraged, commodified, and then rediscovering this blueprint, powernomics, for self-determination, it really emphasizes agency.
It absolutely does. And this deep dive, I think, really underscores how important critical thinking is. When you're consuming information, watching global movements unfold, especially when culture and economic capital are involved, you've got to look past the surface narratives, understand the deeper strategies at play.
Couldn't agree more. Look beyond the packaging, perhaps.
Well put.
So as we wrap up, let's leave you, the listener, with a question to mull over. It's straight from the source material itself. What do you define as survival in this moment? Think about how the insights we discussed today
it's happening
might
now.
resonate
If
with
you
your
felt
own
something today,
navigation of the
share
world.
this message,
What
subscribe,
does clarity
because
mean for
we
your
are
path
reclaiming
forward?
what was never meant to be lost. This is the Diaspora Cultural Drift, and we are not confused.